Hello, it's been an enormous week. We won in London, and one of our great players, youngest ever player and record goal scorer, has sadly passed away. So we'll be talking about him. That will be the main topic, but we'll go through everything else like we normally do. We'll be talking about Alioski, Frank Worthington as well. We've got stats back for Get Your Stats Out. We'll even be looking ahead to some of the England games. So lots to go on, lots to subscribe for, loads more content coming. Here we go. Throughout this podcast, there will be some recorded messages from other people on their memories and stories and thoughts of the late, great Peter Lorimer. The following podcast contains some strong language and some very average opinions. Any references to actual people are wildly inaccurate. It's probably best if you don't listen at all. The Roaring Peacock Podcast. Welcome back to the Roaring Peacock main cast. This is 90 miles per hour. Your stories of Peter Lorimer. Coming up on the main cast, we'll be talking about winning in London. We'll be looking at the Alioski situation. Frank Worthington passed away as well, and we'll be talking about Peter Lorimer. Obviously, get your stats out for the lads. Stats is back with some more stats, ups and downs if we've got time, and England. But first, the week began with an end to the 3 years wait for a win in London. A fired-up Patrick Bamford, after missing out on England selection, bagged a goal and an assist despite nursing an injury in a 2-1 win in the capital, all but securing Premier League football for another season. But it was heartache again for our community, as the passing of Peter Lorimer, youngest ever player and record goal scorer for Leeds United, succumbed to a long-term illness. And later in the week, another former player, Frank Worthington, passed away. Our thoughts are with their families, and we dedicate this episode to both of them. And Mark Jackson's under-23s proved that anything the first team can do, the under-23s can do too, with a rollicking 5-0 demolition job on a West Brom team that didn't know what day it was. A hat-trick from Joe Gelhardt was supplemented with a goal from Crescencio Somerville, and one of the goals of the season by Sam Greenwood, a free kick which pinged sweetly off the crossbar and post, something Peter Lorimer would have been proud of. Our youth pod has you covered for more from the academy. And Mateusz Klich has tested positive for COVID. Withdrawing from the Polish national team, he hasn't looked his normal self for a while. We hope that he can rest up and get back to his energetic self as soon as possible. And Football Insider reported that Gianni Alioski has signed a pre-contract agreement with Galatasary, sending Leeds Twitter into a meltdown and causing the Macedonian to receive death threats. It was a painful loss that cannot be forgotten, and moving forward is sometimes, in some cases, impossible. But we're sure sending death threats to a player is not the answer. Two wrongs don't make a right, and while there is no smoke without fire, there is also no fire without fire. And with in-the-know correspondents like Danny Mills, Football Insider are really not the most reliable source on the internet. And in non-Leeds related news, it's been a year since the first lockdown, and through gritted teeth and extremely begrudgingly, it's probably time for me to start doing some exercise. And football's lawmakers are tinkering again. Hey! After the unabated success of Project Big Picture, VAR knee hairlines, and the European Super League, this time it's UEFA who are contemplating scrapping financial fair play, with Chelsea apparently licking their lips at the prospect of spending another $1 billion in the summer with no consequences. So another successful rule change then. And Europe has been warned not to ban British vaccines as an important ingredient comes from Yorkshire. We reached out to ask them if that ingredient was gravy, but so far there's been no comment. So there we go. And that was your week. And my name is Adonis, and you know me as @TheAdelites on Twitter. It's a very good hello from me. And joining us to discuss all of this and more is he here? Is he really here? It's our man on the post, Ross Bell.
Hello. I've been recalled back up to the first team from my youth position.
And a very happy return. I hope it is for you, my friend. Ringing the bell, which you can do, by the way, if you subscribe on YouTube. And the Prince of Trickery, is that the right thing to call you? I don't know. Machiavelli at Ewan Metcalf is here as well.
I don't even know where that's come from. Where's the Prince of Trickery suddenly arrived from?
I don't know. It just
Stick it now, mate.
Machiavelli.
Is that the impression that I think? Is that the impression I give up as a Prince of Trickery? So bloody creative, Donny.
Sorry.
I think disruptive prince is the kind of terminology used, which is probably nearer the truth than trickery.
Disruptive prince, then. Okay. So Ewan and I, we were on the match review for Fulham. So if you want to know our thoughts, you can check out the match review, and I'll put a link to it there somewhere. But Ross, winning in London, 3 years.
How was that? Time, wasn't it? It was really about time. I mean, the stats suggest it was quite an even game, but it really wasn't. I think we dominated by maybe, 15 minutes before half-time, when Fulham kind of got back into the game. We dominated the rest of that game. Even though they had more possession, more shots on target, they outpassed us, which is a ridiculous stat that doesn't happen to us very often. But yeah, it was a good game, and happy with the win, and more happy with Calvin Phillips' late yellow card, which bagged me 150 quid. Wow. Dissension, walking away with the ball. Loved it. Yeah,
I mean, that was totally undeserved as well.
Yeah, I had Bamford to score. There to be 5 corners in the first half, 6 corners in the second, and Phillips to get booked. And I was like, he didn't make a single tackle in the second half. I thought, for fuck's sake, Calvin, come on, just crunch one of them. And he just picks up the ball, it runs off and gets a booking. It's like, you're my hero. Absolutely love the man.
Fix.
Yeah. I did tweet him right after.
I don't want to take the shine off your win.
Yeah.
But was that the only bet you put on the game?
It was, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. There you go. Because normally people are like, I won 150 quid, but actually they spent 500 quid on separate weird bets.
No, I have spending limits on my betting account, so I can only spend £25 a month. So it's literally £5 bet. That's it. If it doesn't come in, it's gone. So yeah, thank you, Calvin.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
I've won 150 quid, but I've no house.
Right. Yeah.
I sell my child, but still. Cheers, Calvin.
Okay. So let's just get this one out of the way, because Twitter went into a meltdown with Alioski. Ewan, I know this is something that you feel really strongly about, and like a lot of us, like all 3 of us, were alive around that time. I was at all of those, the home legs of those European games at the time, and that it was just the most tragic thing. But even for Ross and I, we were still separated from it quite a bit. But Ewan, I know that you were closer to it. So do you maybe want to talk about it first?
Yeah, it's a really emotive subject, in it, so you've got to be careful. I'm really, especially with the reaction, careful about what I say here. But, the first thing I want to say is that I made my opinion on it privately to you guys in the group, on the WhatsApp group, because I didn't feel like going on Twitter and being overreactive and getting all hate-filled, or the alternative, which is equally as insulting to some people, saying it's fine and people shouldn't be bothered. I didn't make my opinion public. I made it privately to you, and my opinion is pretty clear. It hasn't changed. That I felt that the way, I know people who were at that game and saw that attack in Taksim Square. I know, almost by default, and from many years ago, some of the Loftus family, Andy, Chris was obviously killed that evening. And I know people who are far closer to them than I am. And to say that they have been affected by that, severely affected by that emotionally. I know a guy who was there at the time who hasn't been to an away game or hardly been to a game since, because of what he saw that night. And I won't go into graphic detail, because the other thing I'm really conscious about is not dragging it back up for the families, because it's an absolutely tragic and horrifying thing to have to deal with, that some lads went to a football match and didn't come back. The amount of violence that was used on that night by their attackers is remarkable. It's just like unheard of. So there's no excuse for it. And I felt that the way that Galatasary, their players, their fans dealt with that, the justice system in Turkey at the time dealt with it, was horrific and didn't serve to do justice. it served to blame Leeds fans for insulting them and being misbehaving in the square, which again I know really good, lifelong fans that went to that game who certainly wouldn't have been insulting or misbehaving any more than having a drink and having a good time and singing songs. So many of the locals took that as an insult that was sort of seen to be taking over their square, which again Leeds do everywhere and other fans of other clubs do. I just think it's a horrific way to deal with it from Galatasaray's point of view. So to get back to the Alioski, to bring it round to the modern day, I have no hatred towards that man. And let's be frank, he hasn't agreed anything yet. So people are getting hate-filled and putting comments on about something that hasn't actually happened, which just shows the intelligence of some people. They're almost waiting for something to be angry and hate-filled about. But I think that being serious for a minute, I have no hatred towards... If he did go to Galatasaray, I would not condone it. I can't have anything to do with that club or back anything to do with that club or justify anybody going there who's ever played for Leeds and has an affinity with this city and its people. I cannot justify or condone that. But by the same rationale, I can't hate a professional for going and, wanting to sort of get a deal signed to go and play football. But it's super inconsiderate and kind of stupid for a man who's played for Leeds and has the affinity that he's got because he got us promoted and people hold him in high esteem, even though he's not one of the most gifted footballers we've got, because he's part of that team. My view on it is that my relationship with Alioski and any good thoughts I had about him, I won't be hate-filled about it and I won't hate the man, but his contribution to us being promoted and in the Premier League will completely be forgotten, and I will completely almost forget about him as a Leeds player, because that's my attitude is that's how you should treat anybody who's made a living here and got to know the fans and been held in such high regard as Alioski was. If you decide to go to Galatasaray, then you deserve to have your history with this club completely obliterated from people's memories and from the history books, without wanting the death threats and being horrific on social media. Almost a quiet protest. My take on this is ultimately the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. So I will be very indifferent about Alioski's contribution and his history with our club, because he's going to go and play for one of the most vulgar, despicable teams in the world. And the way they handled that situation that happened, all those years ago to two of our brothers, two of our fans, whether you knew them or not, I think is despicable. And to say that people they weren't alive then, Alioski was only a child, I have no time for that excuse at all. None whatsoever, because it's there in the history books. There's a plaque outside the ground. We laid flowers very recently, or Calvin laid flowers very recently to commemorate the memoriam of that tragic circumstance. So let's not beat around the bush and say, well, I was only young at the time. So it's part of your history. That's like saying I wasn't around when, Norman Hunter played, or when Peter Lorimer played and Jack Charlton played, so I don't have to show or pay my respects to those people. It's completely using a circumstance to suit your argument, in my opinion. But these are only my opinions. I have no grudge, or I don't fall out with people if people have an objective, an alternative opinion to me. But that is just my take on it as a Leeds fan.
Yep. Ross?
Yeah, pretty much very similar. Just obviously, I hate Galatasaray, as every Leeds fan should. It doesn't matter if you're born, if you're a kid, if you're in your 50s, if you're 100. This club shouldn't be anything you should have any sort of affinity towards. But also, like you mentioned, Alioski has a job to do. This is his career, and if we're not going to offer him a deal, and a Champions League club can offer him a deal on probably far superior wages than what he's getting at Leeds right now, none of us could turn that down. Probably if we were Leeds fans, we probably could think twice about it. But he's not a Leeds fan; he's just a Leeds player. And I've become kind of, during the Bates era, I got desensitised to people being Leeds fans and leaving the club. When Howson was sold, when Woodgate was sold before that, and all those guys came and went, they're just players now. Like, I love Stuart Dallas and I love Patrick Bamford and Liam Cooper, but they're all going to go and play for other teams eventually. Hopefully not Galatasaray, but he's got a job to do, and if they're going to offer him Champions League football and superior wages, I'm we're not offering him a deal. That's as kind of as plain as it can be. He would have had a deal in place already if he was going to stay. I just hope it isn't announced before the end of the season, because the hate he's getting online already is just disgusting.
Yeah.
And if it is announced as a pre-contract signing, then he shouldn't play for us again for his own, not for his own safety, but for his own kind of, I don't know if he doesn't manage his own Twitter, does he? He has people that do it for him, but they can't hide everything from him. He must kind of see some of it and be aware of it. So for his own sakes and for Leeds' own sakes, it's been a nice season on Twitter, by and large. There's not been anything that we can get up in arms about, by like a couple of losses on the trot. So I don't want it to go back to the ways it was. It's been quite nice to be a Leeds fan on social media this last couple of seasons. So I don't want just one player signing for one club to kind of ruin all of that. Yeah.
So for me, it's two distinct sections. There's like the logical part of my brain, and then there's my heart. And like the logical part of my brain says, we've got no idea how many offers are on the table for Alioski. He's 30 years old or whatever, he's very close to the end of his contract, and this is going to probably be his last chance to get a contract in football. So my logical brain says, okay, for him as a player, that could be, for all I know, his best option.
Yeah.
But my heart says, something completely different. And the reason why we love football is because it's so emotional. And so you can never remove that from the game in a way. And so, I'm very, very conflicted. I think even if it was like, Rob Green went to Chelsea, you know what I mean? Like, we don't really care about that. So I think it's either scum, if you go to scum, or you go to Galatasarray, or you go to, maybe you do go to Chelsea, but you're a massively important player at the time. Like if Rafinha went or if Calvin Phillips went, I think that would break our hearts as well.
Yeah.
But not to the extent that somebody going to Galatasaray has.
When Kuhl went there, that broke my heart.
Right.
I'd written him off as a man when he signed for Liverpool and screwed us out of the money. But when he went there and when he said what he did, like that took it to the next level. I don't think Alioski would do that. I think he'd go there and he'd be their player and not ever mention Leeds.
Yeah, and you have to imagine that Kuhl had other options.
He did, yeah. I think he definitely did. A lot of options from Italy, but went there for more money.
Yeah, and he was there. He was at the game, and he wore the black armband, and he saw the way that club treated everything about that incident.
Yeah,
you look at how vilified and how hated Alan Smith was for going to Man United at a time where you could argue he was actually doing it to help the club, bring some income in. We were in real dire straits. Local lad, guy who got us to a Champions League semi-final, could never question his commitment to the club.
Yeah.
Then my final point on this is, if you're arguing that we should let Alioski go with our blessing, then why? How many of those people would have hated Alan Smith for going to Man United and made those feelings known? Because to me, Alioski's done far worse than what Alan Smith did by going to Man United. But we're supposed to sort of hate Alan Smith, and still now, after many years of it going water under the bridge, but we're supposed to let Alioski go with our blessing. I don't get that. And as I say, we've all made our feelings really clear, but everybody's got an opinion and everybody should be listened to. I think the way that Leeds has played itself out on Twitter, look at what a human being, what a great human being and what a philosopher Bielsa is. My greatest concern is if he sees this side of Leeds and how fans can behave towards a player he obviously likes and respects and rates, what effect will that have on Bielsa? So all these people laying into Alioski and laying into other fans, just think about the impact it's going to have on a human being of the gravitas of Marcelo Bielsa and his long-term thinking about staying at Leeds to manage for another 2 or 3 or however many years. I would imagine, without knowing the man, but sort of seeing how he carries himself, that it may well have a negative impact on his wanting to remain at a club that has that kind of underbelly or those things lurking in the dark shadows, because every club has them. I'm sure he's aware of that, but I just think it's been pretty nasty to watch. Like Ross said, having had such predominantly a great experience on social media watching Leeds over the last couple of years, to see how things have so quickly gone downhill.
Yeah. And the thing is thing is, just to round this off, if you criticise Galatasaray for what they did, you can't do something, akin to it. It's obviously not as bad, but you can't do something akin to it because then you lose the moral high ground.
Yeah.
I'm Dave Simpson, the author of the book The Last Champions, about Howard Wilkinson's title-winning Leeds United side. But today I'm talking about another member of a legendary title-winning Leeds United side, Peter Lorimer, who sadly died this week. As a young kid in the 70s, even before I ever went to see Leeds United, I can remember playing football in the local fields, and if anyone ever scored like a real rocket shot, you would shout "Lorimer" as you sort of wellied it between the jumpers for goalposts or wooden sticks, as they often were, kind of imagining that you were Peter Lorimer. His reputation and his shot especially went before him. He was called Hot Shot Lorimer, the Lash, 90 miles an hour, which was apparently the speed at which he hit the ball. A fantastic player. Leeds United's record goal scorer of all time, probably a record that's not going to be beaten now. What I loved about Peter, as well as I've grown older, and you start to appreciate things other than people's playing prowess, but you realise the mark of the man, really. But he came down here from Scotland as a very, very young kid and never left. He really established roots in the community, which says a lot for his love of the club and the city. And he became one of those people you could approach at the game or around the ground or in his public commercial that he ran for several years and just talk football, and he would do that. One incident really from those days really sticks in my memory. I remember going to see Leeds at home against Villa, and we nipped into the commercial to sort of get a pint poured by the great man and see some of the flags and medals that were above the bar. And there was no sign of him. And the chap behind the bar said, "Oh, he's playing football," and it turned out he was playing with Leeds United Legends team. Anyway, he came back in, and someone shouted, "Oh, how did you get on, Peter?" And there was this deathly silence. He didn't say a word, and everyone's off. He's obviously got, they've obviously got beat. So anyway, he goes to the bar, pours somebody's pint, hands over the pint, and then just calmly just says, "Oh, we won 6-0," and everyone roars with laughter. And I love that because it sums up the measure of the man, really. That even at, I don't know what age Peter would have been then, but he was getting on a bit, still playing football and still loved winning, and that was Peter Lorimer.
Okay, Frank Worthington. 1982 he played, 1982-83. Do you remember that, Ewan?
Bloody hell, I'm not that old, mate. To be honest, I'd been to games before that, but as I said to you before, I wasn't a big follower of Leeds until much later, so I sort of dipped in out of games. I never remember watching Worthington play for Leeds, although I do remember him taking penalties in a sort of charity testimonial game at Huddersfield's, the old Leeds Road ground at Huddersfield. But he took his penalties against Joe Corrigan in a fedora, a trench coat, and some winkle picker shoes, and he didn't miss. That's my memory of Frank Worthington.
Nice.
Okay, Ross?
No,
do you know anything of the man?
He played for Leeds 2 years before I was even born. I know his name from just the incredible career he had, starting in '66 and retired in '92. That's incredible. But yeah, I'm aware of who he was, and a proper playboy footballer, and just moved from club to club and went abroad. And yeah, it's a shame that goal he scored, I can't remember who it was for, but where he's doing keepy ups out of the box, flips over the defenders' heads and just turns and volleys it in. That's absolutely superb.
For Bolton, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He's got this classic 1970s porn star look about him with the moustache and everything.
Shoulder length hair.
And just purely, I'm not going to lie, reading from his Wikipedia, he took a medical in 1972 ahead of a proposed transfer to Liverpool. And Bill Shankly took a look at his high blood pressure and said, "No, you're stressed out, pal. Look, just I'll pay for you to go to Mallorca, right, for a week. You just go there, lie on the beach, chill out, no stress." After encounters with 4 separate women, during this 1 week.
Only 4? What was he asleep? You having a bad week?
Including former Miss World.
Okay.
He returned showing high blood pressure again. And the transfer fell through.
Wasn't his what do they call it? Not a fitness test. What do they call it when you sign for somebody? Is it a fitness test?
Yeah.
Medical,
yeah.
Didn't he fail it on having an STD? I'm sure somebody's told me that. I'm going to chastise the poor man's name now. He's. This is no obituary, Frank. I do apologise.
Charisma, flamboyance, hair, clothes, fast cars. He had 4 court appearances for driving in 1 year, including one for doing a U-turn on the motorway in a red Ford Mustang.
The Ford Mustang as well, superb.
What a way to
go.
Yeah. Oh, dear. So, I mean, what a character.
Yeah.
By the sounds of that, I mean, what a character, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's only the stories that you know. That's the thing. You just know there's going to be a whole load lurking that nobody sort of knows about. I can't remember where we were. I think we played a golf day with Leeds against Liverpool. It was like business people from Leeds and footballers. So we were in with we played a round with Ankara and played a round with Jonathan Douglas, who was then the captain at the time. Yes. And Liverpool, absolutely. I mean, we had our stars there. We used to seeing him, Eddie Gray, and Frank Worthington turned up and he held court at the bar, and it was like a really great experience just to watch him. And you could tell he had that mercurial sort of enigmatic sort of maverick. Even just stood in a bar, he had like a flowery shirt open down to the sort of belly button with a big gold chain, and his hair sort of slicked back, very spiv looking, little thin moustache. But what a character, what a guy. And he was a big lad, I know he was tall and sort of angular and slim when he played, but he sort of looked like a gangster from a kind of Yorkshire black comedy at the time. But Liverpool had, Ian St. John was there, Phil Neal. It was a really interesting day, and it was full of characters. But even like to take that transition onto a football pitch, you could just tell he was like almost unmanageable. All the others were being really well behaved and sort of talking to fans and sort of people around the club. He was just holding court and talking about his conquests and so on at the bar. So he was really almost unmanageable in the clubhouse at the golf day. So God knows what he was like, on a football pitch back in the 70s.
Played for 24 different teams.
Wow, really? I didn't realise that.
Yeah. I mean, Philadelphia Fury.
Yeah.
I mean,
Tampa Bay Rowdies.
Yeah. There's some odd names in there,
Yeah.
Ending up in, Semeys Bay, Hinkley Town,
Lock up your
Staley
dots.
Bridge Celtic, Chorley, born in Halifax.
Yeah.
And his career in Halifax as well as player coach. Nice.
And the season he played for Leeds was the first one after we got relegated. So the first one back in second division, as it was. He played 32. He had 32 appearances. And he scored 14 goals. So he was going at a goal every couple of games. Very decent return.
Yeah, definitely.
That season ended with us in 8th. Out of the 42 games we played, we had 21 draws.
We don't do that anymore, do we?
I'm going to say, stop doing that.
Yeah.
13 wins and 8 losses. But I mean, 21 draws. It just shows you how things could have gone so differently. We could have been straight back up the season after, just with a bit more luck.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was Frank Worthington. And now we can talk about Peter Lorimer then. It feels like to me we've just lost a whole group of legends. And, if you throw Pablo Hernandez into that as well, I feel like the next time everybody's at Ellen Road, it's going to be an incredibly emotional experience. Maybe not like we've seen in years, in decades.
Yeah, I think someone said on the Square Ball podcast that they're going to need to get into Ellen Road 4 or 5 hours before kickoff just to get through the memorials for all of these guys that we've lost since we were last there. And I hope it's not the West Brom game, because it's not going to be right if it's not a full stadium. It needs to be the start of next season, maybe. Because 15,000, 20,000 people inside Ellen Road, it's not going to have the same effect at all.
Mm. Yeah.
I think if they maybe have it on the memorial dates of when people have passed, maybe, and hopefully by then people, everybody's allowed back in the stadium. Others who maybe haven't got tickets can go and show their respects and pay their respects. It'd be brilliant, because you've lost, the word legends bandied about far too regularly these days. But we have lost pure legends, haven't we, from way back? Unfortunately, it's getting to that generational time where that team of Revy's team of the 60s and 70s, now they're getting to that age where he's going to become more regular, but it seems like they've come way too quick, way too often recently.
They're still young as well, 74. That's no age, is it? At all?
He'd been poorly for a time, though. We attended a couple of events with him, quite a long time ago, 5-6 years ago, and he was, I think he's been poorly for some time, God bless him.
Like a lot of Leeds fans these days, I wasn't around for Peter Lorimer's glory years, but as long as I can remember, as long as I've been a Leeds fan, he's been part of the club. He's been amongst the Eddie Grays and Norman Hunters, discussed in those circles, not only for the successes that he brought to the club when he was playing, but for being a real man of the people, a real panel of fans, from pulling pints behind the pub to meeting fans and talking to them on a real personal level. I think Peter Lorimer, the Leeds legend, is going to be remembered alongside Peter Lorimer, the lovely, wonderful human being.
90 miles per hour, hot shot, lash. So he got that nickname 90 miles per hour because he was clocked. One of his shots were clocked at that speed. I don't know what the XG would be like on most of these shots. I mean, it's 0.02, isn't it? I mean, he would shoot from miles away. He goes sailing into the top corner. No, but we've heard a story of I can't remember where this is from now. We'll get into your stories, but somebody's put. There was a guy on the line who tried to block one of his free kicks, and he's ended up like half dead, passed out.
Yeah.
He's headed the ball and he's ended up passed out in the goal.
Yeah, I remember that. It was a free kick just on the edge of the and it hit him straight in the face. He was on like the 6-yard box. The play went on around him. I think we scored from the resulting cross. Nobody even cared, but he was literally like invalided back to Blighty, sat in the middle of the 6-yard box, like being hit by a bloody missile.
His Wikipedia said he had one penalty kick that was recorded at 107 miles per hour.
The thing is that I'm going to say these days it'd be hard to believe, but in them days with that ball and the kind of pitches and the boots and the equipment being nowhere near as good, God Almighty, that's a fair shot, isn't it?
Yeah, imagine how hard he could hit that new Premier League football.
Yeah, with new boots.
Yeah, Jesus,
on a new pitch.
Well, not our pitch. No.
I'm going to say, let's not go too far.
Well, yeah, a new pitch.
on a pitch resembling the 70s, just to pay tribute to him.
Right. We've got that already.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, let's read some comments out by people then. So we'll just start with Eddie Gray then, because Eddie knew Peter. Saw Peter the first time in 1962 at Ibrox playing for the Scottish schoolboys against England. And he said, I was a year younger than Peter and I couldn't believe how good he was. I thought to myself that night, if I want to be a player, I've got to step up to the mark. In that same year, he made his debut for Leeds United at the age of 15, playing alongside John Charles. I mean, just stopping the quote there, but I think it was mentioned on the square ball as well. Can you even imagine a player playing at 15? I mean, I know Milner played at 16 now, but...
I remember Alan Smith's debut at 17, and he was just this gangly kid.
Right.
Like mixed in with the big boys. Imagine a 15-year-old next to John Charles as well. It's an absolute statue of him. That must look insane.
Okay, so I put out a tweet, said, what are your thoughts and memories of Peter Lorimer? Guys, do you want to read out some of these?
Yeah, I've got one from our mate Barney, at Barney ____, is it 321? I remember his pre-match talks in the pavilion. He was always insightful and talking about how he would prepare himself with the Revy team. It was a strange seeing a legend like him walking around talking to the supporters and getting to have photos with him, like he was just one of the guys.
So Dave Devonport at DMDev54 links back to what we've just said about the power of his shot. But sometime around 1976, I borrowed a colleague's newspaper one Monday morning to read the report on the Leeds game at the weekend. It contained this memorable phrase: "Surely anything more powerful than Lorimer's shooting could be found only on NATO's secret list."
Got one here from Paul Hanna. First match I went to was in the 60s versus Leicester. Peter hit a shot from inside the area. He missed it, but it hit one of the pillars of the scratching shed. It hit the pillar so hard, I'm convinced it rebounded back to the halfway line.
One from Jane Marie at Brisbane _LUFC. Standing in the cop with my mother, I was about 7 years old, knowing that when he got the ball, something magical was almost certain to happen. Life held no greater pleasure.
Okay, that was my mum, by the way.
Oh, hi, Adonis's mum.
She's very supportive of our podcast.
Yeah.
Like her.
Hi, mum.
I think I'm a favourite, to be fair.
Yeah, and I'll tell you why for.
I'll tell you for why.
Got one here from Colin Warrington. Meeting him in his pub, The Commercial, and this was my memory of him. And he got us 4 tickets for the game. Top man.
Nice. Yeah, I've got to say, I didn't see him play either. But what I do recall is going after Leeds games when we first started going, not first started going, but when we got to about 17, 18, 19, and beyond, we used to walk back from the games all the time. We rarely got the P2, the service bus, because of the queues, and we walked back. So often, like, a group of us would be together and we'd often say, "Oh, go in the Commercial because Peter Lorimer's got it." You actually get a pint pulled by Peter Lorimer. It was like this big draw to go in and do it. And I remember going in after one game, and memories pretty hazy when it comes to football at the best of times, but we went in the Commercial. Peter was there behind the bar pulling pints and serving us, and we were like in awe that we were getting a pint pulled by the Peter Lorimer, who we'd heard so much about. And stood at the bar was John Charles. So you can imagine, as young lads with that history of sort of never having watched these guys play, stood in a bar having a drink with Peter Lorimer pulling your pint. John Charles stood at the bar. I can't remember the other player who was there with him. Bobby Collins. So you've literally got those three stood at a bar in the Commercial in Leeds, and we're all sat there in awe, just drinking this pint as slowly as possible, so he could pretend to have spent time in the company of these legends, and hearing the stories that they told and the way they interacted with everybody that was in the bar at that time was just really down to earth and quite humbling and magnificent experience.
What a scene that is!
Yeah, I know.
What a scene!
You should paint that, Donny. You should.
Yeah, I know.
I can see it. I can see the cogs going in his mind already.
Yeah, there's another 14 hours down the drain.
I love making work for you, Donny.
That goal scoring record, though, is incredible. 238 goals. That's something we're never going to see broken. Like, Becchio got 86, and that's kind of the most recent player that's anywhere near him. Just 152 goals behind him.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll turn that off.
You imagine the kind of impact that had, over all those years. If you think about the impact Becchio had, or anybody, Smith, or anyone, they got nowhere near him.
No,
nowhere
Chapman,
near him.
Viduka, all great goal scorers of our lifetime, but yeah, absolutely nowhere near.
So this is another comment from Mick Ward at Mick Modern. I was in Paris when he scored against Bayern Munich in 75. Danced with and kissed the French American stood next to me for minutes before we realised they had somehow disallowed it. We are the champions of Europe.
We got one from Andy Rue Hayes at AJ Hayes 50. Simply magnificent and my favourite player as a child. I'm honoured to say that I spoke to him and that he waved to me at a night out in Leeds. I now wish that I'd gone to his pub. Big regret.
I think we've got one from No Filters at No Filters 56. I was in Paris that night when his goal was ruled out for offside. Absolutely no doubt we would have lifted the European Cup that night had it not been for the bent officials. Which I think is something we can all agree on.
Yeah.
A time where we need unifying.
For me, Peter Lorimer was one of those players that you wanted to emulate when you were out playing in the field, when you were playing heads and volleys with your mates, when our parents were playing football with our friends. Peter was the player that you wanted to scream his name while you were striking a volley into the top corner because nobody could strike a ball like Lash. There was a quote recently that Peter Lorimer was a great goal scorer and a scorer of great goals, and that he certainly was. I think my favourite Peter Lorimer goal, and there are so many to choose from, of course. I'm going back to October 1971 against Manchester City. Little flick through from Billy Bremner, and Lash gets onto the ball and flicks it with his right foot over two defenders. Just watches the ball come down out the sky and then just unleashes this volley into the top right-hand corner, and three goalkeepers were never saving that. It was, Yeboah-esque, obviously. That's where Yeboah's taken his inspiration from. It was a hell of a finish. Leeds United's all-time record goal scorer, youngest player to ever make his debut, senior debut at 15 for the club, which is insane when you think about it. Playing football with grown men and showing them how it's done. But that was indicative of the attitude back then and the way of Leeds and the style of Leeds, and so many memories, so many goals, so many milestones you can attribute to Peter Lorimer. And once again, it's a huge loss for our great club. But I know 100% that as soon as we're able to, the club will ensure that we honour their memories. Not just Peter, but Norman and Jack and Trevor, and there's been so many that we've lost, and we should be able to get together and pay our respects the only way we know how, and that's together. Rest in peace, Peter.
And I think this is kind of how a lot of us feel. Anyway, this is from Sam Ward. My dad's hero when he was growing up. He used to tell me stories about him and the Revy team. Then one day when we went to a home game, I saw him and I was in awe. He was the man my dad told me so much about. His records will never be broken and his legacy will live forever.
Sums it up nicely, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it kind of feels like he's like that Obi-Wan Kenobi character. He's the old man who was, Obi-Wan Kenobi was a farmer or whatever. I shouldn't get too much into the Star Wars metaphor, should I?
Here we go. I'm going to down this dark alley again.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah, he had 21 caps for Scotland. That seems wrong.
Tragedy. Yeah, he got banned because he went to
Israel.
He went to play in South Africa.
Oh, right.
Okay.
During the apartheid. But I want to say Obi-Wan Kenobi, he's like that sort of famous figure that he was this kind of wizard back in the day, and he kind of hung around doing a kind of menial task, which is no offense to any bartenders or mixologists, I think they're called nowadays, aren't they? No offense to them, but he's our record goal scorer, and he should never have been in a position like that. He should have been completely set up for life, and without wanting to copy too much of what everybody else is saying. But I mean, you've got to say the exact same things anyway. Just to say, when Scum went to his parents' house and put a briefcase of £5,000 cold hard cash on their table, and his parents rang Don Revy and said, "Look, we've got £5,000 cash here," which was an enormous amount of money. Revy was breaking the speed limit to get the last ferry over to Scotland to make sure that didn't happen. And that's the difference, I feel like, between our club and Scum. It's just Scum just turn up, drop drop some money in a briefcase and fuck off again.
Yep.
And we've got that personal touch, and we always have. And then from playing football and then opening the bar and doing so much for the community, always speaking as honestly as he could, but always being careful not to criticize the club during bad times because of his relationship with them, but being diplomatic, but always just being like a reserved and a little bit shy probably as well. But just such a legend and just such a sympathetic character around the club. And I think he was at the start of creating the Leeds United that we know, which is a big club and an expectation among the fan base of we deserve to be winning league titles. We deserve to be going to Europe. And we didn't have that before the 60s. And Don Revie and those players changed everything, and he was a massive part of that. And I do feel like limbs are being hacked off Leeds United, and we're not there to mourn it. I can't think of a positive to end on other than I think you just have to celebrate these people's lives.
Well, the positive way to end it is they'll be revered forever. They'll go down in history. People will talk about them. The goals are there for everybody to see, and testament to the role that they played for the club. But the thing that might not come across, which I felt like saying, was it's rare. The reason why we suddenly had expectations about winning stuff was because we had the players to do it, and Lorimer was in that gang of players that you felt were capable of winning anything. They were that good, and I think also that. He remained a really humble guy forever, and didn't get carried away with any reputational things or things from that era. Any player of any era that makes the crowd stand up and that anticipation of something about to happen, you could say Rafinha now, or Gascoigne, for England, whatever, has a special place in people's hearts. So regardless of the appearances, record and the goals record, actually a player that can get the crowd on the edge of the seats every time they pick the ball up in anticipation has a special place in our hearts and our memories.
Yeah.
Yep. Also.
Okay. We've got emotional. We've got serious.
Well, it's better than being pissed last week, to be honest. Well, I don't know.
It's not to get the views, is it? But it's
I'm going to say it seemed to play on. Seemed to get the audience in, but yeah.
So we're just waiting. We're waiting for our mate Stats now.
We can do everything on this podcast: emotional, drunk,
right.
frivolous,
right,
serious. We've got the lot.
Does that make
young
Patrick
man
Bamford
yells
the
at
new Anakin Skywalker then? Is he going to turn evil on us?
Yeah.
I hope not. I was going to say young man yells at screen, which is what I was doing in my match reactions. If you haven't seen, check out the video. We'll put it up there. I'm not going to put it up any of the cards anyway. It doesn't really matter. Okay. If you're listening on a podcast, that's all YouTube talking. You won't know anything about it.
On YouTube,
so it doesn't really
subscribe.
matter anyway. Exactly. So we've got a knock at the door, and it's get your stats out for the lads.
Evening, boys and girls.
Evening, Stats.
Statalicious, is it? I can't believe his beard's grown back already.
Yeah.
Can you tell you
You're like George Graham, mate. You like literally a shave, and then you've got a 6 o'clock shadow.
It just comes back straight
as
away.
You walk out the bathroom,
it?
yeah.
I know. Tell me about it.
What a man.
Tell me about it.
What a man.
Proper geese.
Need to shave every hour.
I think I do.
Stats.
Yes.
How are you? You all right?
I'm good. It's been a good week. Good win at Fulham last time out. And in the international break is a bit frustrating, but it looks good to go to the Sheffield United game week on Saturday and hit that magic 40-point mark, all being well, with another one over the Blades.
Ups and downs, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think all the negativity over if Leeds were getting relegated or not, I think can finally be put to bed.
Right.
The 13 points clear. We've got 24 points to play for. Fulham have to win 5 more games than Leeds. The fact is that they're playing Newcastle, and I think they've still got Brighton to play as well. They all can't get 3 points in both the games. So mathematically, we're not safe. we're not going down.
I said we were safe after we beat Newcastle before Christmas.
I agree, Ross. Do you know what? I've never been once worried about relegation. It's just been, as usual, the overreaction on social media at times. I've never once been relegated. I've always been looking up. And let's have a really good end to the season, and let's enjoy the run that we've got in April with City, Liverpool, and Man United.
It's always that strange thing when you're in mid-table and you don't know whether to look up or down. But that Leeds anxiety that we've built up over the seasons, it's always going to kick in at some point, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think I saw one of you and things on the other Roaring Peacock, the channel that does all the little outtakes and what have you. We've Leedsed it, but yeah, we're fine. I understand it because it's our first season up, but we've had a brilliant season, and fans need to get that we're a newly promoted side. We've played some fantastic football. We've been on some brilliant games. We've got 9 games left. Let's get as many points as we can and see where we finish.
Oh, Stats, we love you.
I think we were spoiled. I think the other thing, Stats, is I think, I remember when we were last promoted back to League One or Division One then.
Yeah.
We got spoiled because we finished so, I can't remember. You'll know we finished that first season? Was it 7th?
4th?
In 10-11.
No, sorry, when we first got promoted back to...
we first got promoted to Division 1, we finished 4th.
Yeah.
We had a brilliant cup run in the run belows, as it was, beaten by Man United over 2 legs. Yep. Took Arsenal, the champions, to 4 games, and in the Zenith Data Systems Cup, we lost out to Everton in the Northern Area final. Played a ridiculous amount of games that season, and it's different, isn't it? Football's changed in 30 odd years.
Absolutely,
the money is massive. But back then, in that season, we did get spoiled. And look up in the following 12 months, we went and won Division 1.
I think that's what people are comparing it to, wrongly. That you go up and you can't do it now. So money dictates.
Fourth is still on. We're only 11 points behind Chelsea.
True.
Well, exactly,
they've only won 2 games more than us.
It's still probably on, but there's got to be, I think, a bit of realism that we're a newly promoted side. We've had a magnificent first season back. It's a good chance just to take stock and go again for the run into the season. And let's have some fun. Let's go and enjoy the games against City, Liverpool, and Man United. Let's go get some results against these sides.
Let's beat Scum. We always used to measure our season by that game. If we finished mid-table, it didn't really matter if we beat Scum. That was a good season.
Exactly. And let's beat them out and let's have some fun. I don't actually think Man United are a great team. I watched them against Leicester in the FA Cup on Sunday. I thought they were all
exposed, weren't they? Leicester exposed in big time.
Solskjaer might win one trophy, the Europa League, but to me, that's winning that trophy because they've been knocked out of the Champions League. So, not really great.
Ordinary is the mildest term I think any of us here would use. That. So
I'm nice. I'm a nice person. Yeah, I don't tend to swear at times, but yeah, they were dreadful.
Just quickly on Ewan's point, I think when we came up in the early 90s, that was also a really different stage of English football as well. Like Liverpool were waning, now if you look at it, you've got the riches. I mean, they're swimming in oil money and blood money, and they spend billions each summer. It's just you can't compete with that.
I can't imagine. I can't remember what it was, but the biggest transfer fee probably 2 million, 3 million. Gaz went for 2,088,000.
Right.
To Tottenham, it wasn't big bucks back then. Nowadays, you're talking 150 million for a star player.
Right. I like the way Donny's just said. Last time we came up, in the early 90s, Liverpool were waning. We've come up again, and Liverpool are waning.
Love it. Yeah. Look, Leeds will improve year by year. Leeds will improve. We're here, in my opinion, we're here to stay, and we'll get better next season. I'm not worried about doing a Sheffield United next season. I'm really not, because I think under Bielsa, I think he will stay Bielsa for another season. I think we'll push on and hope train for that top 10, if not top 8 next season.
Okay, so Stats. The title of this main cast is 90 miles per hour. Your stories of Peter Lorimer. So, have you got some stats for us about the late great Lash?
Of course, as I always do, like to come prepared for the show and do a bit of research.
Somebody's got to.
Yeah, that's why you stand out.
They have, Ewan. They have. It was another sad day on Saturday when news reached everybody that Peter had lost his brave battle against illness, and to be the youngest ever player at 15 years, 289 days, I don't think that'll ever be beaten. You never know, because with players coming through academies, certainly at Leeds, but to be 15 years old is incredible to make your first team debut. 29th of September 1962, away at Southampton in Don Revie's side when he made his first start. His first goal came on the 4th of September 1965 against Nottingham Forest. I worked out, I think he had 5 hat-tricks for Leeds United. He was also the captain for Leeds United a couple of games under Revie. Then he was the captain under Eddie Gray. And what's interesting is once Billy came in 85-86, the captaincy was taken away from Lash, and I think he made his last appearance in that season. And his last ever goal for Leeds, amazingly, was in a full Members' Cup tie, that defunct competition, obviously, which went on to be the Simod Cup and the Zenith Systems Cup. His last ever goal was in a 6-1 loss at Manchester City in a group game back in season 85-86. And I'd love to see that goal. I don't know how possible it would be to have footage of that goal. But yeah, to get 238 goals in 707 games is outstanding. And it's probably something that will never be beaten. And it's another sad loss for the Leeds United family after the sad news, obviously, of last summer, with obviously Norman Hunter, Trevor Cherry and Jack Charlton passing away. And just to touch on Frank Worthington as well, who sadly passed away this week. Came in a very difficult time in the old First Division in 81-82. Almost kept us up. Scored a brilliant goal at home to Southampton, smashed home from just inside the penalty area. And I think his signing probably came a little bit too late. Got 15 goals in 35 games. But yeah, it's sad that all these players are passing away, unfortunately.
What's mad about Peter is he wasn't even a striker. He was an attacking midfielder.
That's the mad thing. Number 7, wasn't it, Ross?
Inside right, almost.
That he wore it. It's amazing for a right midfielder to score that. I mean, and he once scored 7 goals in 7 games for Leeds. He scored 7 consecutive games, which is an unbelievable record back in the 70s. I think in 71, which was phenomenal. And you never know if that'll ever be beaten by certainly Leeds. But I know, obviously, Jamie Vardy did it in the Premier League, but football is a lot different nowadays. But yeah, just a sad loss. Scored some brilliant goals for Leeds. I think one of them that, for me, all stand out that I've seen on TV was the equaliser in Barcelona in the European Cup semi-final, second leg in the Nou Camp. Leeds obviously went into the game 2-1 up in the first leg. Obviously drew the second leg, 1 apiece in the Nou Camp. Had Gordon McQueen sent off, so they were hanging on for 10 men. And obviously the goal that a lot of people talk about, the goal that never was in the European Cup final against Bayern Munich, which, who knows, had that been allowed, the players of that era could have had the full set. I know it wasn't Dom's team, I know it was Jimmy Armfield's side that got to the cup final, but they could have probably had the full set and won the European Cup back then. So yeah, some wonderful memories. To have that shot that probably nearly broke people's hands. I know, reading in The Athletic, some of the goalkeeping pieces that Phil's done is fantastic. And as I said on Twitter last week, when the doors are open and COVID is kind of put away, touch wood, we're all back in that ground for that first time. It'll be a hell of an emotional afternoon.
It certainly will be. Okay. So did he have any more stats on
any more stats? He's got his 200th against Ipswich in 75-76, and in April 1984 he broke John Charles's league goal scoring record at Ellen Road with a penalty against Oldham Athletic. A record, of course, still stands today. And again, 238 goals from one play. It's the longevity, really, for having that long a career. I know he had 2 spells at Leeds, but to play 707 games is unbelievable. The closest we're getting at the moment, I think, is Coops and Dallas, who are on 220 of the current crop. And I think, outside the top 50 of all-time appearance makers for Leeds United. So, yeah, you don't get loyalty like we did. And I'll always use Matt Letizia as the example for loyalty in football. He must have had so many offers in the late 80s, early 90s to go to other clubs like your Man United, your Tottenhams and what have you. Still at Southampton, saw his career through at Southampton. And I just hope a lot of this current crop are here till they retire, really.
My thoughts about Peter Lorimer, well, he's actually through my dad, because I was too young to see him play for the Dunrevie team. He told me this story of a West Riding Cup match, which they used to play at the end of the season. Everybody was exhausted. And I think it was against Halifax, and they just conceded a goal to make it 3-3, I think it was. and the Leeds players had just had enough. So at the kick-off, straight from conceding the goal, Peter just whacked the ball. He received the ball and then whacked it from the halfway line and went straight at the back of the net. And that just summed it up for me, really.
And honours he won then. So he was the player of the year in 71, 72.
He was player of the year 71, 72. League titles in 68-9 and 73-4. FA Cup, obviously, in 1972. League Cup in 68. Intercities Fairs Cup in 68 and 71. So he's just the one that escapes everybody. Adonis is the European Cup final in 75, which I know I wasn't around back then. My mum was at the cup final in Paris, and she tells me all the stories. And I always will imagine what it'd been like at least taking the lead in that game rather than have France backing by refereeing the game.
Yeah, I mean the injustice of that when players like this pass away.
Yeah.
I feel like that's also something like that you can't really forgive. Really, you can't really emotionally forgive Beckenbauer or Bayern Munich for doing that.
Like, what would have happened if VAR been around in 75?
Right.
We've had a couple of penalties in that game, definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there you go.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
they'd have gone to Stockley Park and then they ruled it out.
It's Leeds you until the point would have ruled it out.
That's true.
Great,
Ever the optimist, you.
Yeah, mate.
absolutely.
Ever the realist on it.
Some brilliant memories, and they're building a hell of a team up there at the moment. And just I had a tear in my eye on Saturday morning when I heard the news, because we're all on a high after the Fulham victory, and it just made it for a bit of a somber atmosphere.
Yeah.
And as I said, that first game back, whenever it'll be for the full crowds, will be a real emotional roller coaster.
2 right then, Stats. Okay, just enough time then for what's your thing?
Well, this weekend, and I don't know if you are fans, is the resumption of Super League.
Okay.
It's back this weekend. I'm a big Rhino fan. My missus won't thank me for saying that, because she's a big Tigers fan.
Okay.
We'll play each other in a couple of weeks. So if I come out alive by the time the Sheffield United pod comes round, I've done well. But yeah, looking forward to the return of Super League. Leeds start against Wakey on Saturday afternoon. The competition starts on Friday with a couple of games. And looking forward to kind of getting my Friday nights back, because I love watching the coverage on Sky. And hopefully when grounds reopen, I'll be able to get Teddingly as well as Ellen Road.
Okay. Excellent. Well, enjoy your Super League, the Leeds Rhinos. I hope you don't get tackled by your missus and eye gouged or whatever. You're just walking down the corridor and all of a sudden she comes out from nowhere.
Yes. It's about right forever. About right.
All right. So that's so have you got something to say?
I have. That's your fault. That's your fault.
It's never not gonna be funny. Brilliant, mate. Thank you so much.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers.
Take care.
Take care, Stats. Thanks, mate. So there were Stats. There you go.
Love that. I forgot about the Rhinos playing again, coming back this week, and that'd be brilliant.
There you go, the Leeds Rhinos.
Can't beat a Friday night with a couple of beers watching the Rhinos for a bit of a change.
Carried the city for many a year when the football club was in its darkest days. Used to go with my dad. Stand up, there'd be proper stands there. Eat a pie. Yeah.
It was a great
chanting Bradford bullshit and all that.
Yeah, it's a great family day out. I take the kids sometimes, and it's a great day out and very family friendly. I remember when my wife used to go with her dad, and they used to send you to the front so you didn't hear the swearing. That's what my missus always tells the story of.
Right.
Nice.
Okay. So, do we have time quickly for some ups and downs then?
Yeah, of course we have.
Yeah.
Always.
Ups and downs. Ross, start off with you. Some ups from the week and some downs from the week.
Ups, definitely the under-23s, absolutely smashing West Brom. Jogo Hart looks like an absolute superstar in the making. He is going to be some player and hopefully get some first-team football for the end of the season. My down is Bamford missing out on England, because he deserves it more than Ollie Watkins and more than Calvert-Lewin, who hasn't seemed to score for ages. Why isn't Bamford not in that team?
Let's face it, no one can argue with you there, Ross. Ewan then? Ups and downs.
Oh, God. Ups. Fucking hell, I've had a shit week, and I can't even think of an up. What a depressing week.
We won in London, Ewan.
Yeah, well, listen, that feels like a lifetime ago. Was that Friday night?
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Can you not remember it?
No, I was absolutely steaming. Ups, I'll tell you what, Ups were getting away with you asking me to do the review 10 minutes before I jumped on. Half cut. Getting away with that was a definite up, and seeing the figures, the viewing figures, and the positive feedback was a definite up, because it could have gone either way. To be honest, I guess a down is just this, the constant sort of optimism of getting out of lockdown, and then you hear this, we're likely to get a third wave from Europe. So we're blaming you, Donny. It's all you bloody Europeans. Double kissing and sitting in bloody coffee shops far too early before we've got out of it properly. But no, I mean, the fact that, that sort of you get a bit of hope, and then it's taken away from you by the prospect of another wave and another lockdown. And all that stuff's been a bit depressing, because bloody hell, we're ready to get out, aren't we?
I thought leaving here, you would have stopped all this.
What's that?
Yeah.
I thought leaving here, you would have stopped all this foreign virus coming over here.
COVID didn't get the Brexit means Brexit memo.
Didn't get that memo. If only we lived. If only we lived on an island and we could, stop people coming here.
Right? Yeah. Oh dear. Ups and downs for me. I just winning in London. It's just a complete up. It's a massive up for me. I was ready to cruise these 2 weeks on the joy, on the wave of joy that brought me, because it had gone on for far too long.
I mean, 1,190 days, is it?
Right.
That's not right, is it? That's ludicrous.
No, it's not. I know we don't play in London every week, but still.
Yeah, fucking hell.
It had gone beyond the point of irritation. And then downs has just been, the abuse and the meltdown that I see on social media, and I avoid it. It's only when people in the WhatsApp group or whatever bring it to my attention. Another up. I got my teeth filled. I got a filling in my teeth and my teeth cleaned, and I got a haircut. So feel like a bit of a new man. I got a new manly perfume.
What's wrong with your old man?
You.
There you go. What, BO?
Versace blue jeans. Nice.
Versace blue jeans. There you go. The
Lee.
classic. So that's my new smell. So that was my ups. Okay. Lastly, then, and let's not linger on this. Do you have to let it linger? England and the international break. San Marino and Albania. Do we care about this?
No.
I'd care more if we had a few more Leeds players in the team. I think it makes it more interesting to watch and more relevant to us Leeds fans. We haven't had many in the England team for lots and lots of years, since Bowyer and Smith, I think, way back. And of course, Calvin more recently. So I can't say I don't care about England, because I'll watch the game and I do want them to do well, but it's becoming less interesting and less of a sort of spectator sport that I'm bothered about watching. And the style of football, it's like Leeds, isn't it? Before Bielsa. How many times did you go to a game thinking, wow, I can't wait to watch this expansive, brilliant football? There'll be some great goals. Which players am I going to watch? These fantastic footballers. There wasn't a lot, was there? So it's a bit like that. It's a bit meh with England, isn't it?
Are England Luke Varney? That's what we're saying.
Heckingbottom.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad he's back at Sheffield United, doing a fantastic job. Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get onto that next week. We could even dedicate the whole pod to him. That'd be fun.
It's a Heckingbottom special, shall we? Sheffield United certainly won't be doing that, so we might as well.
Agent Heckingbottom.
Oh dear. I feel the same way about you guys as England. I think it's not just the fact that we're playing San Marino and Albania, and that brings me absolutely no joy at all. I don't want to see. It's one of the things I like about the Nations League is that you play teams of a similar strength
and get beat.
I mean, it's probably the only thing I like about the Nations League, to be honest. But yeah, I don't see. I think they're pointless games. Never more so than during a pandemic when we're supposed to be. We're just trying to end this lockdown the as quick as possible, really. And that things like this are just not helping. But yeah, it's this other thing that you guys have talked about already as well, which is just the anti-football that Gareth Southgate plays. The massive amount of right backs, the 3 defensive midfielders, the 7 or 8 defensive players at a time, and it's anti-football, especially when we used to be Bielsa.
Yeah, he's going to put Calvin next to Declan Rice, and they're both going to get each other's way again because they can't play together because you don't need 2 players doing one man's job. It is complete anti-football. If he plays Phillips with like Ward-Prowse maybe and Foden or Lingard and Bellingham, then that's a good attacking midfield with Phillips holding the line, but he won't do. He'll play 5 defenders and Phillips.
If you'd have asked me, right, 10-year-old me, after Euro 96,
yeah.
I've been running around full kit wanker as a 10-year-old, running around full kit wanker in my England kit in the back garden, playing football all summer. If you'd have asked me then, Adonis, come here, Adonis, come here. Would you rather, right, watch England or watch Leeds United's youth team? I would have thought, what a crazy, stupid question. England, of course, But now, fuck no.
Yeah.
If it's Leeds under 23s or even Leeds under 18s or the fucking under 12s,
even Leeds ladies,
right? No. Let's not go down there.
Let's not go too far. Sorry.
I actually would watch Leeds United ladies if there were streams available.
Yeah, if they were playing football, they were allowed to.
Right. And also that. But yeah, so, I mean, come on. England versus San Marino. England versus Albania. We don't need to play these. Yeah, what a fucking... Exactly, Ross. What a fucking waste of time.
Yeah. Just give all those players 2 weeks off, or just finish the Premier League season 2 weeks earlier. Just keep playing the games that matter.
Right. Yeah. I agree. So we've fucking fixed football again.
Every time, every week. Do you know what though? It's right that you said it before, Donny. I think it was the other week. But why do England have to qualify? And other countries, Italy. The sort of top countries. It might sound a bit sort of, I don't know, sort of hierarchical. But if you've a team who's obviously seeded. Let the other smaller teams play against it. Again, make it competitive. Let those smaller teams play off against each other to qualify. And save these players that are kind of apparently overworked and overplayed. And, particularly this year where they've had a very short close season and a long season. Just recuperate and get ready for the competition. It'd make it a better competition if everybody was fit and the smaller teams that get through against each other, God bless them, they play against the big teams and get their day in the sun. And I don't see why they still have to have this traditional qualifying when there's teams who are going the whole qualifying campaign unbeaten and scoring 40 goals, and you've got Liechtenstein finishing bottom.
It's getting destroyed.
San Marino minus goal difference of 146. It's like, what's the fucking point?
It's money again, isn't it? I mean, that is all it comes down to.
Just let the top 12 automatically be qualified, because that means Germany, who are 13th, have to try and qualify.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's just about all we have time for. So if you enjoyed this podcast, you can find us at Peacock's Roar on Twitter, or The Roaring Peacock on Facebook, or The Roaring Peacock on Instagram, or imaginatively The Roaring Peacock on YouTube or TikTok. I think we also have an account now.
Probably on Grindr as well.
Right. Yeah.
We're across all the platforms.
Right. Yeah. Advertising anywhere we can.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for listening. My name's Adonis, and you know me as at the Adelites on Twitter. It's a very goodbye from me. And joining us for this podcast was Ross Ring That Bell at Ross Bell 1984.
That's a goodbye from me, and make sure you're listening out for a special interview that's coming up this weekend with me and Stats.
Right. And another you're not interviewing Stats, you're interviewing you both are interviewing
Leeds
somebody else.
United player, the last player to score from a corner, in fact.
Right, there you go.
Which is a joke.
And what's our defined nickname for you now, Ewan? It's not the Princess of Trickery. What is it?
I've no idea, mate. You just make a different one up every week, just on the spur of the moment. I think it was the Prince of Trickery. Now it's the Disruptive Prince, and it's Machiavelli. Then it's whatever you want, mate.
We need a Twitter poll for this.
Definitely. Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Do that.
Yeah.
I'm getting the fame's getting to me because I'm on the no context Peacocks now stuff. So I've made it on there. Although I don't think it was my finest moment, but hey, we'll get to that. But whatever you want, mate. I've been called worse. I can guarantee it.
I'm sure we need to come up with a good nickname for you, Ewan. Fitting and deserved.
Yeah, well, I'll leave it to you, boys. You'll be the judge.
All right. So it's a very goodbye from Ewan at Ewan Metcalf.
Goodbye. Thanks for watching, and good to see you back, Ross.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah, been brilliant to have you back, Ross.
I've
missed you.
It's fun doing 23s, but I like doing this a little bit more. A little bit.
Well, that's a massive fuck you to Matty and Rob.
Well, they know all the stuff, you see. I don't really know any of the stuff about the under-23s. I just wind them up and let them talk, basically.
I was going to say, that's it's a bit like the Peter Lorimer thing about 90 miles an hour. That was the speed that Frank Worthington was doing a U-turn on the motorway. Ross has been allowed back to the senior squad after his misdemeanours and been put in the under 23s. Yeah, man.
All right, that's your lot. That's it. Go on. That's the end of the podcast.
Bye.
Bye. Take care. Bye. Most of our stats come from LUFC Stats or LUFC Data on Twitter. A very special thanks to Barney Stewart Cook, Ewan and Howard Metcalf, Josh Pearson, Laura, Leon and Rob, The Light Show, and all our family and friends.
So many games to play, don't care what's on your mind.